as I told you, is Eliza Camber. I am an Android developer at the Dutch Mobile Innovation Studio, and it's called Pixplicity. I'm also the lead for the Women Tech Makers in the Netherlands, and I've been a GDGer and a speaker in a lot of conferences, and it's really my passion. So before we start, what is the Google Assistant? Google Assistant is Google's virtual assistant, voice-controlled, and it's meant to be personal. You can say that it's an extension or, an upgrade of the Google Now. It was introduced at the Google I/O 2016, and it was originally only for the Pixel devices on the Google Home. Later that year, they also released other devices that are running from Marshmallow and above, and it was also available for the Android Wear 2.0. Although it's not currently available at the Android Auto, there are definitely plans to do so, because they also had a demo at the I/O of the next year. And there are also a lot of TVs, Android TVs, that now do support it. It was also released on May 2017, a year after its original release, at the iOS as a standalone app. The previous week, there was Google conference that they announced a lot of devices, like the Pixel Book and the earbuds, and the new homes, and all of them had the assistant integrated, which makes clear that the assistant is here to stay, and it's going to be available in as many platforms as possible. So, okay, got it. It's going to be in a lot of devices, so I should probably have a look at that. So, shall we start building one? Well, no. The way that the users were interacting at the graphic UI with the way that they interact in a conversational app, it's way too different. Besides, even if you want to build a web or a mobile app, you're not going to start coding. You're going to start from the design, from the UX and the UI design. Let's start with an example on how different can the interaction be. Let's say that I have this app over there, and it has 2 buttons. If I have a screen in front of me, that's perfectly fine. I just click on the button and that works. But what if I want to tell to one of you to perform this action? I can tell you, click the pink button, or tap on the pink button, or tap on the magenta button, or tap on the button that is at the bottom right corner, or the button that says 2, or number 2, or hashtag 2. There are so many different ways to give the very same instructions. And if you're doing this, if you're giving these instructions to a person, that's perfectly fine. But what happens if you need to give these instructions to a machine? It's not the first time that the user interaction is changing dramatically. The Xerox Alto Star was the first one to introduce the mouse as we know it now. And the iPhone was definitely not the first one to use a touchscreen, but it did mark an era, a new era, with the innovative way that they used it. The changes they both brought was that we needed to get a step back and create a new way of interaction with our users. And this is where we are standing right now today. The voice user interface, or VUI, is the next user interface for many cases. And the first thing that we are learning to do is to have a conversation. When there is a baby, and the parents get a baby, the first thing that they will do is to talk to it. Thus, we have a lot of conversation basics that we follow in all of our conversations, and we don't know that we know about them. But yet, we need to build an app, a conversational app, that will respect those conversation basics. So there is a thing that it's called Cooperative Principle. And it's nothing more than those basics that we all follow on our conversations. Like the turn taking. I ask for a question, I wait for the reply. You're talking, I'm waiting. If I want to comment on something, I will wait for you to finish that sentence. Context. I call my friend, and he says like, oh, it's so cold outside. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to Lviv next week. Do you think that it will be worse? By this very vague question, do you think that it will be worse? You A, realize that I was talking about the weather, and B, you realize that I was comparing this weather with the weather of the current city that I am based at the point of the conversation. Threading. We're out for beers, and after God knows how many conversation topics we change, you turn to me and you say, oh, regarding your question yesterday about Jack, he said that, yeah, it's fine, it shouldn't take a lot of time. I am able to pick up that topic again and continue this conversation. Reading between the lines. If someone implies something, I am just able to understand it. I am able to understand if something is humor or if something is a critic. I'm able to understand behind the words that you are saying. So now that we do know the discussion, the conversation principles that we need to follow, and how our UI should look like, and not the UI, but the UX rules that we need to follow, let's start by creating an agent. And there are a couple of steps that you need to do to be able to create an agent, or a bot, or a chatbot, or however you want to call this. So the first step is to write down all the actions that you want your agent to do. And then you create a diagram with those actions. You decide if you need a backend for your app. You design your UX. You create the backbone of your backend. You create the agent at the Dialogflow platform. You test, you improve, and you test again. And then you connect it to the webhook. And after that, you test, you improve, and you test again. And I am going to go through some very basic steps before we move to the platform. So let's say that we want to build an agent that it will be for an agency that is giving tour guides. So what do I want my agent to be able to do? I have to write down all of the actions. Book a tour, or find available tour, or find information about a specific tour, or find the timetables, the pickup points. I can have as many actions as I want. And then I take all these actions that I write down, and I create diagrams. And it won't be one diagram, especially if your app doesn't have a specific point that the user will start, if it doesn't have a very strict flow. So you created a lot of diagrams. And of course, they don't have like, yeah, here, the dots. But you go through all of the possible, what you think that they are all of the possible actions that your users might want to do. Then you go to the backend. And of course, there is no limitation for what your backend will be like. And for this demo, I chose to be the Google Cloud platform and the cloud functions, but I will come to you later on at this step. And then it's the most important step. You design your UX. The lack of the UI, of the graphic UI, does not mean that there is not UX there. And the 6 steps for that is that you pick the right use cases, you write them down, you create a persona for your agent, you write dialogues, you test it out, and you build and iterate. And let's see all of them. What is a right use case? So to answer this, let's start with some bad use cases. So I'm building the agent, and I'm like, oh, what's your frequent flyer number? If I ask something and the user has to search for it, you lost the game. Users must be able to answer everything that you want, that you need, from the top of their head. And if this is something required for your core functionality, then you should take another route, or you should reconsider of having your, to invest your time on doing a chatbot instead of doing something else. Sure, I'll book the flight. I need your frequent flyer number first. You don't want to block your users, especially for optional questions. To check if this product is compatible with your PC, go to settings and blah, 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 blah. Well, if I need to open my laptop to find something, I may as well order it from there. I may as well do that action that I need to do from my laptop. I don't need a chatbot to tell me, like, open your laptop. I can do that on my own. To verify, tap on the top of your Google Home. Well, yeah. No. And yes, all these are extreme. They meant to be extreme. But you will remember them at some point when you will find yourself designing for optional things, for example. And you need to optimize for these things: speed, simplicity, and hands-free interactions. And especially the last one. You need to remember that chatbots and conversational apps are made to be used hands-free. So after that, you need to write down your use cases. And of course, the more you write, the better it is. And I have here 2 scenarios, for example. For each persona, you can have as many as you want. And for this example, like, one of them knows exactly the day and the time that they want to book the tour. The other one has no idea. They don't even know what the tour they want to book. From there, like, you know from here, from your use cases, you know how your persona should look like. So I have a CEO and a tourist that are my use cases. What I understand from that is that my persona, my agent, should be formal, because the target audience is adults. It should use a very simple language, because a lot of users will be tourists. So tourists might not be able to speak English that perfect, so I need to keep my sentences small and simple. And I want it to be engaging and fun, because there are some people that are going to use it while they're on vacation, for example. They're going to use it because they just love arts. You might need to have some fun facts for history or for art or for whatever. This can be whatever you want. But all these will have to be a result from your use cases. And your use cases and the persona is then going to be used for writing the dialogues. You need to write some virtual dialogues that the users, your users, might have. How the interaction of the user will look like. And it's better if it's not you that you write down those dialogues, but you tell your friends and your family and whoever you want that I want to create that chatbot, and it will do this, and these actions. How will you interact with it? For this example, for example, I have that I want to know if a tour is available for a specific time, a specific day. I don't just say to the user, like, yep, okay, it's available. I have a tour for that. Is that okay? Cool? Yeah. You don't want to do that. You want to have some more information, so to keep the interaction going. Also, you see later on that, okay, I booked the ticket that you wanted me to do. You need to verify those information to your user. You need to tell them exactly what action you took for them. So here, I won't just say that I booked that tour. I will say that I booked a ticket for the Amsterdam boat tour for this Wednesday at 5 p.m. So, showtime. Before moving to the platform, a lot of you might have known the platform as API.ai. Not yesterday, the day before yesterday, Google announced that they are going to change the name, and now instead of API.ai, it's Dialogflow. The other thing that they put in the platform, the feature that they added, is that now you can have multiple language support. So you can have an agent in many languages, and you don't really have to build anything extra. You just provide the sentences there that you want them to have. So starting from the top, we can see here that I do have a demo. And if you click on here, you can just see all of your projects, all of your agents, and you just tap on it, and you can go and make all of your actions at that agent. And of course, you can also create a new agent. If I click on this, on the gear over here, or if I click on the languages, I will go to the settings for that specific project. And I can see here how I can add a language. I can see all of the information that my agent has, like what the avatar will look like to the user, or what will the description be, the name. You also have some, like the project ID and the API keys so that you can expand it more. You have ML settings, machine learning, of course. You can import and export your agents. You can import agents that either you made or someone else made and you were going to use them. And of course, you can export so that you can save and store something that you made safely, securely. And then you can, of course, share. You can have here either reviewers or developers. And you can add your team so that they can work on the same project that you're working. The first two things, the two main things in the platform is the intents and the entities. So I will start with the entities. And entities are used for extracting parameter values. And for every important actionable data that you want to get from what your users are saying, you need to create one entity. The entities can be, there are three different entities that you can have. You have the developer entities, you have the system entities, and you have the user entities. System entities are just some entities that are already made for you, like dates. You don't need to create another entity so that you can understand the dates. Locations, even given names. Then you have the user entities, and it's just parameters that the values are adjustable to each user. For example, if you have playlists, each user can customize the values of that parameter. And of course, you can have developer entities, like the ones that I have here, that I say what the name of the parameter is, what the name of the entity is, and then I also give some values, some possible values that I want this entity to have. And For my example, I wanted to have available, to find out like available tours or information about tours. So I want to catch the user interest. Like, are they interested for finding available tours, or are they interested for finding information? And you can also define some synonyms, like it can be info, it can be information, it can be more. You can have more synonyms there that they will still mean the same thing. It will still be the same entity. But as I told you, the way that you can give the same instructions to someone, it's very, very different for each of us. And then you can have the tours. And here, I don't have defined any synonyms. It's like an enum, so you can have like this. And my tour can be a guided tour, it can be an audio tour, it can be a boat tour, it can be whatever I want. After the entities, we have the intents. And intents are specific actions that the users can invoke by using the defined terms. Each intent should be focused only in one functionality, only in one action. So here I have another intent for my available tours and another intent for my information. I also have some default intents. Like here, for example, I have my default welcome intent. And I can specify here how my users will start the interaction with that agent. Here I can put the name of the action. And we will see later on why this is very, very important, that I can actually name my actions. And of course, I can have some specified text responses. You can also have special responses that it will be for the Google Assistant, so that it can be cards, for example. You can have for the Facebook Messenger and the Slack. And we will see how easy it is to actually put some of those things there. So let's go back here, and I will go to the information tours. And user says, how will my user get that intent? How will be triggered? So the way that it will be triggered, it's shown from that user says. The more possible things that I put there, the more terms that I put there, the more accurate my assistant will be. So here I have, is there more info about the tour on Monday? Is there more information about the tour tomorrow? Tell me more about the tour. See how here our entities are marked. The information is the entity that I said that it's my user interest. And this one is something that I didn't know, because it's one of the entities that it's in the system. So I can just click on it, and I can see here, first of all the available ones. So I can just change it, and it will learn that whatever you put there, that was not the correct thing that I wanted you to understand. And I put here as my input information that my action should be named. I can have required entities that I want. Like if I want to find a tour, for example, if there is an available tour, I need to know the date. So if the user tells me, like, is there an available tour? Yeah, sure, for when? So here you can also have some prompts, and you can have as many examples as you want. So the prompt is that whenever the user says, is there an available tour, my agent will respond, for which day are you interested? And whenever I have the day, then my intent will be triggered. I also have contexts. So the context is what we understand also. And the name here is for how many questions, like at the tree, for how long is this going to be available. So here it's just for 5. After 5, it will just drop the user interest. So it won't know anymore that the user interest is information. And you can also have input contexts, and whenever that input context is met, then it's going to be triggered. Otherwise, it will never be triggered. And you can have as many input contexts as you want. So if you want to have to be triggered only if you know like both the date and the location, then you can just input here that I want the date and I want the location. And that intent will be triggered only when you have the information for both. Otherwise, it will do nothing. There are also some pre-built agents that you can just use, and they are there for you. If you want to have alarms, for example, you don't really need to do anything. You can just import this, and after that you can just customize everything like intents and entities, and you can add or remove whatever you need. And you just don't need to build something from scratch. You also have some small talk. And this is just, the example that they have is for being more user-friendly, if there is a question from the user. But you also need to be able to repair some conversations. And this is not going to be here, but you can have intents for repairing your intents, your conversation. Like if my user asks something and my agent does not understand, I can still take some things from what he or she said, and I can still repair that conversation. And I can ask more specific information so that it can help me go to that flow that the user wants to go, and something just broke in the middle of the pipe. But the most important thing is the fulfillment. And I told you before that I had at my backend, my fulfillment would have been at the Google Cloud. But the second feature that they announced 2 days ago was that instead of having a separate project at the Google Cloud platform, you can now have an inline editor. And you can just enable or disable this one, or you can have like webhooks that are not from the functions, the cloud functions. And here, I already have something made because it takes some time to build. So I have my input information. These are my actions. So I have my actions here. And for this input information, I want to do something. I want to have a custom response, because I want this to be able to actually communicate with my backend, because otherwise how will I know if there is more information about that tour, or if there is an available tour? I need a backend there to help me take all of this data. And here I'm just taking the dates, and I'm just having a custom response just for an example. But let's go here at the information tours, and let's try it out. So is there info about the tour? And I can see here that I didn't specify a day. So it now asks me, which day are you interested? But it does have all the context, and it does know that I am asking about information about the tours. And it doesn't invoke the available tours intent here. So I will say like tomorrow. can see here that it understands like the date, and it says like the tour you're interest is a boat trip. It lasts 65 minutes. Do you want me to book a ticket for you? So this is still not with my webhook. So what I will do, oh, it does use a webhook, okay. So this was with a webhook. But if I don't have it here, if I don't have this, and is there info about the tour? Okay. For which day are you interested? Okay. Tomorrow. Good one, thanks. So I see here how my agent responded with another response, because now I'm not using a webhook, but I am using those text responses over here. And the last but not least that I wanted to show you is integrations. You can have literally a one-click integration. And if I just tap on this, then it will be published for the Google Assistant, and it will be available for that platform. If I choose to be on the Messenger, then it will be on the Messenger. All the available integrations that you can have are here, and you also have a lot of SDKs that you can use to have to customize more your agents and where they are going to be available. So going back here. So no doubt, the conversational apps are not something that they will just come and go. They're already available in a lot of platforms. There are already a lot of tools, and there are already a lot of apps that are conversational. But just remember that the user experience is going to be way more different than it's used to be. And there is a saying that I really like: a user interface is like a joke. If you have to explain it, it's just not good enough. Thank you.